All right, cool. So we're all set. Welcome everybody in the room and virtually to the Microsoft Innovation Hub. You may have previously known it as the Microsoft Technology Center. We like to rename things, so we've renamed this building. So welcome. We're going to do a Power BI user group session. Just a quick introduction. My name's Will Weber. I'm a data and AI technology specialist here at Microsoft. Been here nearly 10 years now, doing this sort of thing, helping out customers with architectures, answering technical questions in the data and AI space and Power BI, all of that fun stuff. So nice to meet everybody. I'll help with questions if they do come up that, maybe folks don't know. If you have specific questions about the platform, I can often help with those. But today is a bunch of other people's show. So I'm going to turn it over kind of right away to Brent. He'll talk a little bit about, sort of intro and new things and some fun stuff. And then we've got a great presentation from Bryant here who will come to the podium and do all of that in a little bit. All right, that's all for me.
Perfect. Okay, can everybody hear me online? Will it pick me up?
It should pick you up. You want to project a little bit though.
Okay, I'll try to project.
There we go.
So, okay, I'm getting thumbs up. So thank you, everybody. All right, so quick agenda. If you've attended the meetings before, we're going to go through just a couple of kind of housekeeping things about the group and the board. We're going to jump into a little bit of what's new. And then, as you mentioned, we'll have Bryant give us our case study this month. So jumping in, the purpose of our Power BI group is to forum to exchange knowledge and ideas to better understand, develop, implement, and support existing and future Microsoft BI technologies. So I won't read the whole thing here, but the idea of the group is we want to feature case studies covering Fabric, Power BI, all things Azure. We dip into SQL, dimensional modeling, all that good stuff. So anything in the Microsoft data platform is fair game. We're always looking for people who want to present. So if you are interested, please reach out to the group, raise your hand, drop it in the chat. We'll get you on a list for a future meeting. But yeah, kind of a broad umbrella, but all things Microsoft and data. Introduction to the board. So you can see here who is currently on the board. We kind of went through this in detail last month. We'll put the slides out there, but you can see the group that's there. We're trying to have a broad umbrella and bring in people from different industries. We have some from Microsoft, some from consulting world, but trying to just bring different perspectives to the group. So if you are interested in being more involved in the group or want to get involved to some degree in the coming year, feel free to reach out to any of these folks via LinkedIn, via the group. Happy to get everybody involved who would like to be. And yeah, we won't spend a ton of time on these. These will be posted out afterwards. So if you want to read about all of our profiles, we'll gladly share that with you. Okay, so what's new? And this is my portion. So it's been the holiday hiatus, so there hasn't been a ton new in the last couple of months. Ignite was kind of the big end of last year. So going back to November, and kind of the big one that came out of that one was the Fabric SQL database. So if you haven't had a chance to play around with this one, it really is bringing essentially an Azure SQL, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the Microsoft folks, but that functionality right into Fabric. And you can see in the bottom right, that graphic is kind of the updated Fabric overview, and you can see databases now listed there as a component of it. But yeah, it's a fully SaaS SQL offering that's out there. It's intended for transactional workloads. Super easy to deploy these. We did one on a demo, and I think it took us about a minute and a half. You pretty much click go, give it a name, and you have an Azure SQL, a Fabric SQL instance up and running extremely quickly. You can still work with it with all your tools. So SSMS, Azure Data Studio, you can tie into all those things. And then the beautiful thing about being inside of Fabric is that it ties into everything else that you want to do. So anything you want to do, Data Factory, real-time, Power BI, anything in that world, you can jump in and out of. So definitely dig into that one. This, in my opinion, gets Fabric a little closer to ready for prime time as kind of the data platform to use end to end. It kind of filled a missing piece. So check that one out. Any questions, drop in the chat. We'll answer what we can there. Another one that got kind of a revamp right around Ignite was OneLake Catalog. So the interface has been completely revamped. There's some new features in there. You can sort by domain, item type, workspace, tags, preview. there's a whole bunch of stuff you can get to there. And something that's pretty cool about that is the lineage view. So if you jump into like a lake house or something, you can look at lineage view, see what's connected upstream, downstream from that. So having all of that just natively right there in Fabric at your fingertips saves you having to jump around workspaces or jump into other tools. So pretty slick there. And then on the data factory, data engineering side of things, there was some expanded CI/CD support. So now if you're linked up with Azure DevOps or GitHub, you can pull in those data flows Gen 2. The new copy job is included in that. You now have the ability to import and export pipelines. So that's something that's been sort of missing prior to this one. Semantic model refresh activity, you can now go for even more granular than just the whole semantic model. So before you just had to say, refresh my entire model and go from there. From that activity. Now within there, you can actually refresh specific tables or partitions. So you can get a little more granular right in your data factory pipeline, which is pretty cool. And then open mirroring, which this is one I haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time with, but this essentially gives you a tool set to connect to other third-party sources that are out there. There's a couple of caveats to that, but you can set those up as mirrored database solutions right inside of Fabric. So some fun stuff. A couple of other things coming up. So FabCon 2025, I'm planning to be there. So if anybody's going, let me know. Could have a little Minnesota meetup in Vegas. But that's coming up March 31st through April 2nd. And then I believe there's some workshops on either end of that. I think there's some on Sunday and then potentially the days afterwards. But check that out. You know, there's a ton of content that comes out of this one every year. I would anticipate this is when the next wave of kind of the big announcements are going to come out. So if you're curious, put that on the radar, check out the schedule. I think the workshops and some of the session scheduling details have started to pop up on the website. Activator is now generally available. So that was previously known as Data Activator when it first launched. Now it's just called Activator. But this replaced a lot of the Power BI alerting functionality. So dig into that one. There's some pretty cool functionality there. Folders are now GA. So if you've got big messy tenants, I'm sure you're a fan of folders, just like I am. Big fan. And I think security on folders is starting to pop up.
Yeah, not there quite yet, but it will be coming soonish.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I saw a couple of blog posts about that one.
Along with their support in CI/CD.
Nice. And finally, Event House monitoring. So this one kind of snuck out in December in preview. I haven't had a chance to play around with it too much other than turning it on in some workspaces. But this allows you to, in your workspace settings in Fabric, if you go in there to the monitoring tab, literally one click, you can say start monitoring. It's going to spin up an Event House inside of that workspace, and it's going to start tracking all that logging data. So there's a ton you can do with that in terms of getting some more granular data about what's happening with all those artifacts that are in the workspace. So definitely check that one out. That one's on my to-do list to collect some data now that I have it turned on and then just see what I can do with it. So stay tuned. We'll maybe do a session on that one down the road. And then, yeah, just final note there, Fabric team's been on holiday hiatus, so not a lot of updates, but stay tuned. I'm assuming the January update for Power BI Desktop will be coming before we know it. And then the blog updates will start to kick off as well and kind of get back to the usual cadence. So now a couple upcoming events here in town. So this Wednesday, the 15th, the Dynamics user group will be meeting here in the same room we're in at the, I have MTC, Dinah. I probably need to change that to MIC.
Yep.
So if you're involved in the Dynamics world, for sure check that out. The presentation is going to be on Copilot, using Copilot in Dynamics. So topic du jour.
And that user group is also a Power Platform. We're going to be in the next two rooms over there.
Oh, perfect. There we go. So if you didn't catch that, Power Platform also involved with this group. So come check that out. Broad umbrella there. Also dropped in one for at Fulton, we host Power BI Fabric Meetup, which is more of just a social meetup. We don't do tech presentations, but we bumped that back a week just so that we wouldn't conflict with the Dynamics and the Power Platform group. So next week, Wednesday, the 22nd, down at Bald Man Brewing in Eagan. So come check us out there if you are curious. All right. Now I will pass it on to Bryant, who will get set up and take over the screen share here in a moment.
Good.
gonna join in meeting. My bad. Okay, now that our ears are all broken. Okay, and then you said on here, let me do this.
So yeah, share, yeah, if you hit share first.
That actually came up here.
Oh, yeah, he does have Wednesday, February 5th.
Goes. All right.
Actually, it looks like it did it right.
Did it okay. We didn't even have to
Good.
hiccup it. Very good. Okay. So hello, everybody. So I'm Bryant Avey. Can everybody hear me okay online and everywhere?
We're good online.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Bryant Avey, and this is Smart Forecasting. Today I'm going to walk through a case study for Hennepin County, how we work with them to basically optimize Azure cost spending, and we use Power BI. But the demo I'm going to give you today is actually a port of that solution that we did into Fabric. And so everything that you're going to see today is going to be a live direct link connection to Fabric. So when we get to the demo piece here. So let me, before we get started, let me tell you just a little bit about us. Our background is InterNuntius is a Minnesota company. We were founded in '97. So we're about 3 months into our 28th year. So we've been doing this stuff for a long time. We're a family-owned technology company, work with governments, mid and large-sized companies, work with some of the largest companies in the world, a wide variety of industries from agriculture, education, manufacturing, distribution, finance, government, food, insurance, communications, tech, healthcare, to name several. How we help our clients, what we do is we basically build custom, bespoke solutions, design, build, implement, deploy those for our clients. We are a Microsoft AI cloud partner, and we also have relationships with SAP, Oracle, Snowflake, and IBM. And then we primarily focus on all things data. So we do data architecture, data engineering, data science. In the data science area, we do a lot in the way of machine learning, algorithms, forecasting, which you'll see some of this today. We also do things in the graph database world, Neo4j Tiger Graph. And we also do things in time series data, such as timescale DB and things of that nature. And then we build applications. So we do a lot of web apps. Whoops, it went too far. Wow, what the heck? That went really crazy. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. And then, and so we build apps. We also do anything and everything around Office 365, SharePoint, Power Apps, all those things, and all things Azure. And then we do training, and we do custom training programs for government, private, and commercial industries as well. So that's about us. So before I dive in to the actual case study, very, very special thank you to the Hennepin County IT Finance Department. And then specifically within that, the FinOps team. They allowed us to not only come in and work with them and build the solution that you're about to see, but they also gave us permission to get a public version so I can do a public demo, show and tell of their data. So this is all pretty much live, real data that you'll see from Hennepin. So that's going to show up in here. So it's all public data that's available. So I'm going to walk through just the use case and some of the challenges, things that we were trying to solve. The county has a multi-year budget cycle. Part of that is driven, believe it or not, from the Microsoft contracts. Microsoft with the county, they do 3-year contracts. And they do this with Oracle and IBM and several other vendors as well. So there's a multi-year budget cycle that they have to deal with. They have multiple levels of governance, as you can imagine. And so the FinOps team goes through and works with various different groups, and they prepare a budget to the county board They review it, discuss it, vote on it, and then ends up getting approved. And they end up with this not to exceed budget for all their cloud spending. For the stuff that we're going to be looking at here is what that's involved with. They work with multiple lines of business, and then they also combine this with IT architects. And with through those discussions, they meet and talk through all the different, the disparate technology solutions that are around the county and the different needs that are there. And from those discussions, and they meet like every few weeks, or at least a couple times a month with various groups and teams and lines of business, they prepare and they capture this in the form of data that they call cost drivers. So they build these cost drivers, and these cost drivers provide timing for planning. Hey, we want to build this thing next year. That's going to require these servers or these virtual machines or these databases or these reports or whatever it might be. We're going to do some development time. We're going to ramp up, and then we're going to deploy it. And here's our time frame. So they take all of that information and they put that in a cost driver section. So they need to be able to kind of manage and handle all that. So a lot of complex spending patterns, right? All the Azure stuff, all the planning, all has to be combined. And a few things that are very critical or crucial to the success of this forecasting and budgeting process is they need to be able to look at the forecast by lines of business and also across something that we call a workload or a cloud workload, which, so at the county, they have multiple tenants. So they have a government cloud, they have a commercial cloud, and they have a non-production environment. So they got multiple tenants. And then in addition to that, they, of course, they need to be able to look and plan for different lines of business. And so they might own in each of those tenants a separate subscription. Within those subscriptions, there's different resource groups, and those might be broken down or shared among different lines of businesses. So they want to be able to look at something like that they group up and call a workload to say, okay, regardless of what tenant it's on, what subscription it's in, and what resource group within those subscriptions it's in, show me all the costs for that thing so I can take a look at it. So that's one of the challenges. No matter what we do in terms of forecasting, we've got to be able to validate and see how accurate that forecast is across multiple timeframes. We might want to not just look at it on a monthly basis, but instead aggregate it and look at, well, what is it if we look at 3 months of actuals compared to 3 months of forecast, or 6 months or 18 months. And so that's one of the things that is key. We also obviously spent all this time building this budget, and we have this not to exceed limit on our spending. So we need to see where we're at in our spending, on our cloud spending, and find out how that compares. And then we need to be able to perform kind of more data science-y types of things where we're ad hoc running different forecasts with different parameters, different forecasting models to see, does one thing maybe forecast or work better if we change or tweak the parameters a little bit. And then the last bullet point here is that multi-year forecast. We always forecast 4 years out into the future. And the reason for that is because once we get to the third year of that contract, we want to see the next full 3-year cycle. So we always forecast out 4 full years. So those are the critical pieces or elements. So what do we do? How do we solve and bridge this, all this complexity and all this stuff going on? Well, the first thing that happens is every month we generate a forecast, and we do this. We forecast only full complete months of data. So we don't do any partial months like today's we're halfway through the month. We would see only December data because that's the last full month. So we typically run this on about the 7th day of the month. And again, that coincides largely to Microsoft's schedule of how they get to give us our cost. Microsoft finishes all the prior month billing on the 5th of each month. That means we get it approximately sometime, usually by the 6th. So then we run all the forecasts on the 7th. So a lot of it's driven by kind of external requirements here. Now, when we run these forecasts, we do this at 3 different summarization or aggregation levels. We run forecasts at the tenant level, the subscription level, and the resource group level. And for each one of those levels, we run 6 different forecasting models: the ARIMA, an exponential smoothing, a trim mean, and a trim mean 2x3. And then we also run a linear regression and a run rate forecast, which that's just a naive type forecast. So we run all of those at all those different aggregation levels. So before I dive in and actually demo this, are there questions, thoughts, anything, comments, or anything anybody wants to know about just Hennepin stuff in general, the process, or anything else that I've covered so far? Can't see online. Yeah, no one's. Okay. So this is a snapshot of what one of their primary screens looks like. This is done, we've got a custom theme that we've put in that all of their slicers and filters are all in the kind of a branded purple color. And then everything's kind of, this is their dark theme. And so what we've got up here is a couple things going on. We've got what you're seeing on the bar charts are the 6 different forecast models, the ARIMA, exponential smoothing, linear regression, and all those. Time frame wise, we're looking at January 2024 through December of 26. So that's a 3-year cycle. This happens to be the current 3-year cycle they're in. So Hennepin right now has just completed their first of their 3-year budgeting cycle, right? And so here we're looking at all the various forecasts. Now we can view these we're viewing it currently at the tenant level, but we can also switch and view it at a subscription level and see what those forecasts, when we forecast it by subscription, what that looks like. And we can also view it at the resource group level. So I'm going to flip back to subscription level. And then one thing that we can do is we can go down and pull up a workload. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this hasn't warmed up here. Should have warmed this up a little bit. It'll take just a second for it to show up. I'm going to do FinOps. I'm going to click on this FinOps cloud workload. This workload contains all of the work that we did, that our project was. So what you're looking at is at a subscription level, all the various forecasts for our project as it spans multiple subscriptions and resource groups and all of that. There's other things in there besides the things we did because we're adding additional projects and things like that on here to the work that we did to the database and things like that. But it basically is projecting that out. Now, I'll show you, I'm going to flip back here to tenant. I'll show you a couple of other things we can do, and I'll clear that out. Now, we don't always want to see the individual forecasts for stuff that's already happened, for the actuals in history. So for everything that's in 2024, that's already ancient history. We don't care necessarily to see what the individual forecasts were. We do for comparing it to how accurate it was, though. So we need those numbers, but generally speaking, we don't want to see that. So what I'm going to do is just tell it to show only the actuals. That collapses everything that's already happened, and now we're looking only at forecasts for future values. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and show you. There's a couple of other features in here. We're currently looking at everything on a month-by-month basis, but we can also turn around and look at it on a year-to-date basis, and it starts over each year, so you get a feel for the change or the volume that it's increasing each year. So January to February. You can also then turn around and show it on a cumulative basis. And so what this does is it starts. We say, hey, start whatever our date range is. Starts at 0, and then how much does that accumulate? So now we're looking at a cumulative version of all of our forecasts on a 3-year period. So let's do now that thing to show the not to exceed forecast budget. And I'm going to actually flip back to monthly real quick, and we'll kind of do this sequentially. I'm going to choose and turn on the not to exceed forecast budget. It's maybe a little hard to see on the screen, but there's a black line here that let me move this and see. I don't know. Can you guys see that very well? Does that show up very good? Kind of faint. But it shows, you can see some spikes in like May or so of this year. But right now you can see that there's quite a disparity between our budget and our actual cost forecast, okay? So let's turn on and show you what it looks like if we include these these cost drivers. I'm going to just flip on cost drivers so you can see what they are. And so you can see at the bottom here, these are those recorded cost drivers that they get from planning and meeting with all the different lines of business. So what we can do is turn around and say, okay, show me all the forecasts that include these drivers. And what that does is it basically adds those known costs. I'm going to turn that off. It adds, oops, my bad. It adds those cost drivers now to the forecast. So now you can kind of start seeing a little bit about, where some of those spikes and things occurred, in that forecast model. Like, why it spikes in those months is because say, hey, we're going to be ramping up, we're going to be adding new services. Okay, so now these happen, like I said, monthly or more often, and so we've actually got an as of date. This is what the forecast looked like pretty much about the same time that they created the budget. Okay, but things change, right? We meet with people, we push things back, we adjust things. So if I come and turn around and go down to say October of last year, now we can see that a lot of these spikes have been moved back. In fact, they were in May of 25 and now they're in May of 26. What happened? Well, we're not going to be able to do this year. We're going to push it back to next year. Okay, so then we start seeing, well, this spike now on a monthly basis is now breaching our contract, right? So what do? Are we okay? So let's turn around and look at this at a cumulative basis. In fact, let's do this in fact first. I'll just go ahead and scroll down and pick the latest January 6 cost drivers. And then let's look at it on a cumulative basis. So now we can see that on a cumulative basis, if we project all the way out to the end, we've got about a million and a half buffer. We're still okay. On a monthly basis, we might spike, but overall, the overall 3-year budget that we have, we're still in line, we're still okay. And so, we're only the first year into it. We've got 2 more years of the contract left. So we still have, million and a half left, of space to add new projects, things come up, changes, additions, and things like that. But it allows us to visually see where we're at any point in time and look at those different forecast types and things like that as well. The last thing is I'll show you is there's a scale. We're currently looking at these as thousands, but we can look at it in ones or even down to millions, and it's a little bit clearer there to see that that's 7 to 9 million. The budget's for 9 million, and you're 6-7 million is what the forecasts are coming in. So you can apply these scales at any way that you want to do it as well. The last thing I'm going to show you is, I'll flip over here. I'm going to show you the actual report online. I'm going to show you the accuracy piece. So they wanted to be able to track the accuracy. So what you're looking at here is we're showing at the top, we're showing the tenant forecast. And if I scroll down a little bit, then we've got the subscription level forecast and then the resource group level forecast. And we can pick, any of the forecast types, the ARIMA, the exponential smoothing and all that. And we're currently looking at the actuals from all of 2024. And we're looking at the accuracy of them. So the middle line here is 0, meaning that it matches perfectly with what the actuals were. Our goal is 5%. So we've got a 5% over and a 5% under. That's what these kind of yellow bars here are, horizontal bars. And we're currently looking at this on a month-by-month basis. Well, they wanted to be able to look at those combined multiple, because we're doing 3 and 4 year forecasts. So it's important that as we do this, we're not just strictly looking at month by month. What if I aggregated that to say, what does 3 months of actuals look compared to 3 months of forecast? So I can just go and choose, okay, let's do a 3-month comparison period. So now if we look at December, what it's actually doing is it's saying what was October, November, and December actuals compared to the combined actual November, December forecast for each forecast method. And I can do that for any number of months, all the way from from 1 month all the way to like 36. We actually have data going all the way back to 2021. So we can actually do a 3-year aggregate comparison for each forecast method to see over longer time periods, which forecast methods kind of fall out and do a better job of forecasting actuals over longer periods of time. So this is how all of that kind of comes together and what it looks like. So questions, thoughts, comments about this stuff so far? Pretty neat. I mean, I think it's pretty powerful what it allows them to do. Thoughts, questions, anybody? Okay, so go ahead. Yes.
I do. Where are you doing all the kind of the math and the projections? Is it in the data model itself or is it in the back?
Yeah, so I have an Azure function that's written in C++. So all of those algorithms are the ARIMA and the exponential smoothing and all that. It just runs as a web call, just a web API through an Azure function. So nightly, or actually monthly when that runs, it just kicks those off and runs. The tenant level forecasts take like a minute, 30 seconds to a couple minutes. The subscription or the resource group level ones, there's a lot more of them. And those can sometimes take about 45 minutes. They all run in parallel, so the whole process runs, finishes in about an hour a month-ish as far as processing time, but the actual algorithms are done in C# as an Azure function. Yeah. Somebody else had a question. Yeah.
When you looked at when you had the monthly view, there was,
Yeah.
it looked like some of the farther out forecasts were,
Sorry.
for exponential smoothing were just, complete outliers in the way that they just were rendering.
Yeah, let me go back to base, like this.
Yeah, that might be one. Some were a little more extreme. Even I can't remember what the combination you had there.
Okay.
Yeah, so something like that.
Oops, sorry, my bad. Yep. Yeah, so one thing that you'll notice, so this is kind of funny. So the ARIMA, I will say this, the ARIMA model is the most accurate, but it's not a standard ARIMA model. It's a custom ARIMA model that I built. The exponential smoothing is also custom, and the approach we took on that, and that's the one that trails off. Exponential smoothing, when you start smoothing things, eventually over time, as long as you have actuals, it kind of keeps following and smoothing that. And then after about 2 months of not having any actuals, it kind of fizzles off. It's not very good over long term. ARIMA is normally like that as well. However, I augmented the ARIMA model to allow it to do more trending so that it can be a long-term forecast. I augmented the exponential smoothing I had to kind of invent. They were basing this originally off of an Excel model, the forecast, exponential triple smoothing, the forecast.ets or whatever in Excel. And it's a black box. Nobody that I could find anywhere has ever reverse engineered that formula. And so nobody knows how it works. So I just kind of did my own math on it. And I did it to the point where it predicted better than Excel. And I said, okay, I'm done. Now it could be modified so it doesn't trail and diminish so much and we get because over history, it's one of the top, if not the top model. But then for long term, it stinks because it fizzles, right? It just smooths out and eventually it starts going down to zero.
When you looked at that, the final number, wasn't it, I can't remember, but I want to say it was actually, when you looked at sort of the cumulative effect,
Oh, okay, yep.
wasn't it actually one of the closest ones? Like one of those last charts that you showed?
Yeah. Yeah, here, if I'll put that back up.
When you did the comparison to the actuals.
Yeah, there we go. So so we've got, so ARIMA's several of them are around 5 million. Exponential smoothing's the lowest because it starts fading, and then the actual budget is 9 million. Now that's with here, if I include the drivers back on again. So we're actually looking at everything that we know to date that we're going to be spending. Now we're at 7, 7, 7, 6, 6, and 9. 9 million is the budget. So, yeah. Other questions, thoughts? Yeah. Cool. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. That's kind of the 20,000 foot view and showing you how it all fits together. we're gonna go way down into the weeds, into the sub-basement here for a minute. And I'm gonna show you how to make all this work, or how I did all of this. And specifically, the magic that happens to allow all this to occur on this one chart and all these dynamic things happening simultaneously for us to flip back and forth like we're doing is one very simple thing. It's called it's the calculation groups. So what we're going to do is dive in and talk about the calculation groups. And just generally speaking, what calculation groups allowed me to do in this report is I would have had to have produced over 240 individual DAX measures in order to create all of that. Instead, what I've done here is you're actually looking at 17 DAX measures and then about 7 slicers between the two reports. That the biggest drop down that you see is about maybe 10 items. Can you imagine doing a drop down and seeing 240 items, trying to pick the right combination of stuff that you want to see? Like, it would just be a nightmare. It wouldn't be very user friendly. Yeah, right. You guys, no, I know no one in here has built anything like that. So, we'll admit to. But yeah, so that's generally that's the advantage. So the classic thing. Well, I'll get to that in a second. What are calculation groups? So essentially, they're measures, just like, they're just DAX measures, but you create a group, and then inside that group you create calculation items, which are these measures, and they can be a combination of either like a standard measure where you would just do a sum of something, or they can actually contain transformation or logic that applies to other measures. The key thing is that groups always apply to another existing measure. They kind of overwrite another measure or have an impact or an effect on another measure. So they eliminate the need for redundant measures, and they make it a whole lot easier to maintain, because God help me, I don't want to maintain 240 DAX measures. And you're welcome, John. Okay, John maintains some of this for Hennepin for us. So, where you set this up is you go into your actual model, and instead of looking at the tables, you look at the model view, and then you expand out the semantic model. I'll show you this here in a second. And you just either select a calculation group and then hit new to make one, or you right click it and say new. And then when you do that, it'll create, a new calculation group, and you're off and running. The classic use case for these are time intelligence functions. So let's say that you have a data model and you've got cost data and you've got sales data, right? Very standard. Maybe even you've got a third thing and you're doing something with inventory or quantities. So you've got sales, cost, and quantity. Well, if you wanted to do a time intelligence on all of that to compare quarter-to-quarter growth or quarter-to-quarter change or percent change or anything like that, you'd have to write those for cost. You'd have to write the same ones for sales, and you have to write the same ones for quantity. You did up with like 48 or so different measures just to do like these 4 with those 2 or 3 different things. So that's kind of the classic use case of when you would want to use it. I will say there's a few gotchas that I want to walk through. So when you right click that and say, okay, create a calculation group, you'll be faced with this cryptic message that tells you that this change will discourage implicit models or implicit measures. And so what does that mean? It's basically what happens, in Power BI, when you have any number field in your model, you can drag it out onto the canvas and it'll instantly sum it and start to do it as a chart, or typically a bar chart or whatever. And then you can switch it and say, average it or min max, whatever. That goes away. When you create calculation groups, you are explicitly telling Power BI, I'm going to handle all measures. Don't do any measures for me. It's very much exactly the same concept as a date table. So when you make a date table, instead of having the hierarchy for every date field, create a date table, you say, this is the date table, boom, all that vanishes, right? You now have to connect everything to your date table to use it. Same thing, but this is for measures. So now you have to explicitly define all of your measures. The next thing that happens is that remember I said that these calculation items effectively will override or have the potential to override other measures. So that can be a good or a bad thing, because typically the reason that you're writing them is because you want to change everything. You want to show everything cumulative. You want to show a thing in, thousands or millions or whatever. You want that to happen. But just be aware that based on how you've written those, some of the measures that you've currently written or the way you would typically write them might not work. They might not behave quite as you expect. They might behave badly. So you have to be kind of aware of that. I'll show you that a little bit as we walk through them. But because as soon as you introduce a calculation group to a page, that entire page is now being governed by calculation groups. If you don't have any on there, you're just doing standard regular measures, it's the same as it always was. But as soon as you introduce a slicer or something that you're doing in a calculation group in a visual, the whole page, all the measures on the page are now being potentially affected and impacted by that calculation group. So just to be aware of that. So let's see. So we currently have 7 forecasts. So I'm going to dive in and show you our model a little bit. And what we've currently got is in the model is we've got 7 different calculation groups. And they are hierarchically arranged from the bottom to the top. I have this out here to just show you kind of an example of if we weren't using calculation groups for just the ARIMA model, for example, we'd have to do a tenant level measure. We'd have to do a subscription and resource group level measure. And then if we want to do drivers, we'd have to also do tenant drivers, subscription drivers, all that. So we'd end up having to, write, 40, 50 measures just to kind of handle the stuff that you see on the screen there. Instead, we're not doing that. We're doing it where we're doing a separate group for each piece of that, and then we're having that build on top of each other. So the trick now, when we have multiple calculation groups, is sequencing. You have to think of all your calculations like order of operation. Like when you do math, you have to do parentheses to make certain things calculate in a certain way. In Power BI, it works the same way, or Fabric. So you've got this precedence down here that you set. When you highlight the calc group, it has an ID down there, a number that tells it the calculation, what thing's going to calculate first and what thing's going to calculate last. Now, when you're looking at the model view, it sorts these automatically by that precedence. So you know that if we're calculating the aggregation first, then it's going to do that, and then it's going to next perform all those group calculations, and that's how it works. So it's important then that when we're doing this, that we that we do them in the right order. So I'm going to walk through, dive a little deeper here, and I'm going to show you a couple of DAX measures. And so what we've got here, the main reason that we're doing the aggregation first as opposed to last or in some other order is because those aggregations in the data, they're in separate tables. So what we see is, I'll flip through these real quick. The forecast is in a different table, the subscriptions are in a different table, and the resource group subscriptions are in a third table. Okay, so let's take a look at what the formula looks like for ARIMA. So what we're doing here is we basically go through and we say, okay, let's switch and take a look at the selected value for what the drop down that we've chosen in our aggregation calculation group. Okay, which is, with our drop down is that list, and that list is, those tenant forecast, subscription forecast. This is our drop down list, right? Which one did I pick? So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, I'm going to use this calculation, which is just doing the sum of the forecast value for the specific table. So this first calculation group is establishing a context of which table I'm working at, and it's calculating the value for me. Okay, so what do I do in the ARIMA? I just simply do a filter to say, do whatever this thing's doing on the step before me, and then filter them to the ARIMA one, or filter them to the linear regression one. And so I'm just filtering what it's already done. That's all that it's doing. And so, so let me walk that through you with that a little bit here. Let me show you. And oh, that's nice. I'll show you this live here. So I'm in Fabric, And I'm going to go on the model view, and I'm going to scroll all the way to the top up here and just expand out my semantic models. And I'm going to look at my calc group. So I've got 8 because that one demo one is in there. And so, yeah, so what you can see is I click on this, you can see that's precedent 1. This is number 5. Whether or not to include the drivers, I've set that at 20. And then I go all the way up to scale, and that's at 100. So you can arbitrarily pick whatever numbers you want because you might have things you want to squeeze in between or what have you. But that's how that works. And so I'm going to show you, I want to show you this really fast on the actual report right here. So on this guy, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I probably don't have that loaded, but I'm going to do that and then zoom in. Okay, so on this visual, I want you to take a look really quick at what's on here. There's basically 3 things. On the axis, the x-axis, I have the date, right? And then on the legend, I have that forecast method, the ARIMA, the trim mean, all of those, right? And then I have on the y-axis, the only thing I'm showing on here is measures selected. So I want to show you real quick in the model. I'm going to do a search on this. What measures selected is. I click in here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, see if I can get this with the mouse to zoom in. Okay, okay. Well, that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get here. There we go. Okay, so measures selected. What the heck am I doing here? My whole chart is showing blank, showing nothing, right? The reason is because those calculation groups override the measure. So I don't really need a measure because my calculation groups are doing everything. So I just make a bogus blank measure called measure selected. It's blank, it's empty. That's all that's on the chart. I'm now breaking that down by our forecast methods, right? Because so it splits all those out. And then it's turning around and telling me, oh, go to this tenant, you know, show it cumulative or not. All those override one another sequentially and work with each other and multiply the effect on whatever to generate that graph. So that graph is nothing more than just an empty measure, and all the work is done in the calculation groups. So kind of cool. Okay. The other thing I'll show you here is, I'll stay in here. I'm going to just do this real fast. I'm going to go in and do something to show you the power of this. I'm going to go into my measures table real quick, and I'm just going to make a new measure on the fly here real quick. I'm just going to call this, this lets me here. I'm just going to create a quick measure, though I'm just going to count the rows so we have a quantity, because everything we've been looking at on the chart has been that was odd. Try that again. Right click and do a new measure. Everything that we've been looking at is dollars. I'm going to show you I'm going to build something real fast to show you the reusability and the power of this. Again, if it lets me. What are you doing, Power BI? Maybe I'll show you.
Fabric.
What's that?
You broke Fabric.
I did. Well, this is local, so this was just on the local model. Because I didn't want to go through, refreshing it, syncing it down and everything. But yeah, dang. Okay, maybe I won't show you that. But what I was going to do is just show you just write a quick count rows of like all my cost details. And then we can drag out drag out the scale. We can drag out that cumulative monthly or year to date, and it'll work on anything. I don't have to rewrite that ever again for anything. I can make any measure and then drag those slicers out and wowzers. Could have made one that was just like in there. Not cool at all. Yeah, no, the whole thing's frozen up. So I won't show you that right now. But it makes reusing these things. You build these things once, and then you can apply them to any measure or anything that you wanted to do, and they just instantly work. It would automatically take our counts, break them out by month, and then you can see it cumulatively, or you could see it month, year over year, or whatever you wanted to do. Show it in thousands, ones, millions, whatever you wanted to do. So I had a fail, my demo fail here. So but with that, I guess that's pretty much the last thing I was gonna try to show you. So let me come back over to our slide. and then just kind of open it up for questions and comments and thoughts. I want to thank everybody first, and then also if you guys do want to connect to me, would love to connect to any or all of you on LinkedIn. I'm just Bryant Avey at LinkedIn. And then the other thing you can do, if your organization wants to talk about any of these things, you can go to our website, InterNuntius.com, go to the contact us, and there's a free 30-minute, just book a free 30-minute meeting with us and with me, and we can talk about whatever topic and things you guys want to talk about, or brainstorm about how you would do something or what have you. Happy to do that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions and anything's on the board. So whatever you want.
Yeah, fantastic. My brain hurts just watching you, so I'm not sure how you. Getting back to the original business case, was it just that the main thing is they need to know what their budget needs to be for the next cycle? And so
Yeah,
they need to be like, get some predictability in that? I mean,
It's a big part of it. So what they were doing before we started doing this was a very arduous process, manual, going in to Excel and downloading, cost data, aggregate, you're like paying, right? Doing it all in Excel and then manually doing a bunch of Excel calculations on different things. And they were primarily doing their trim mean models. And they had another consultant that they worked with that helped them kind of develop some of this like trim mean model that they came up with. And that was primarily what they were doing. They wanted to introduce other types of forecasts, and they also wanted to see if there was a way to make it more accurate. And they also they were only able to do it really at a tenant level. So they had one version, the consultant that was helping them develop that trim mean forecast did one version at the subscription level, but they never really used it because it's problematic and it is too tough to get all the data, right? It's a lot of data. And so they needed a data solution, and they just couldn't do that in Excel very easily. And that was part of it, yeah.
And then when I think about FinOps with relation to Azure, I usually think of it as like identifying, where your next opportunity is to be like, hey, if we put a developer on this thing here that's costing $1,000 a day, like if we could just tune that, we get down to are they able to see that type of?
Yeah, and that's kind of a separate effort, and there's other reports and things that we've done that show that. We track like cost savings. One of the things that we did, for example, where we wrote an Angular web app that allows them to create what we call a duty schedule. The duty schedule goes and says, okay, when is this Azure service? When should it be on duty and when's it off duty? So like a lot of things they have like only run like 8 or 10 hours a day, and then overnight and on the weekend, why are we paying for it? And so there's not really a way in Azure to do that easily. So we built a web app and we tag everything, and then we go through and through that UI, we shut things off and turn them back on based on a duty schedule. Those schedules run basically in like Fabric, or not in Fabric, in Data Factory, and in a pipeline and things like that. So we do things like that as well, and they have a whole series of reports for other opportunities, ways, areas to save, savings plans, reserved instances, all that stuff. We've got all that stuff as well. I'm just kind of showing you the forecasting piece because I felt like it was the most exciting. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Other questions, thoughts, comments? Anybody online? I didn't look online. If you're online, you have a question, just speak up. I can't see the hands raised or anything. All right. Then I guess, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. And then do we want to do a closing thing, or how do we do that?
Don't really have a grand plan for closing.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, I guess, thanks everybody for coming. I don't know if we have any just general questions. If folks want to pipe up, we can do a little Q&A session. We often will do those at the end of these. I don't know if any other groups or the folks from Neyland have anything they want to share about, I don't know, anybody's planning happy hour or anything like that after this, but yeah. If folks have questions, feel free to ask in the room or online. You can just come off mute if you're online. Otherwise, we can call it a day a little bit early this time around.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody online.
Thank you.
Still frozen. It's toast. I killed it.
I know she had